In the last video, I broke down the high-level architecture of this sketch to design application, but that still leaves many questions like how is this design understood by system? What actually happened behind the scenes? So in this video, I will walk you through how this whole system come together, what is the data flow of this system, how the sketches that we draw is understood by the system and then converted into the UI design. So let's start from the very beginning. The user will have this frame where he can draw these sketches, and we would need to give the user the ability to draw these sketches using some shapes like an arrow, a rectangle, circle, or even text. So the user will be able to draw the sketch using that. So let me just draw a dummy sketch. Yeah, this. So now we have one question. When the user is drawing the sketches, how are we going to store them? Are we going to store this as an image? No, because that will be too costly for our database and it just doesn't make sense to store every move of the user in the as an image. So what we will do, we will consider this shapes as it is. Okay, like we would have different kind of shapes in our schema that will be a rectangle, a circle, and an arrow, text. And when the user draw them on this canvas, we will store its position in X and Y. Same for the circle, same for this another square. So I have an example for you to understand it a more better way. Okay, so suppose this is our page, the canvas that the user is drawn. How should this data have been stored? The shape data. So this is an example. We have frame ID. We will ignore it from now. It and then name and this viewport. So what the viewport is? It's the position of this frame. We have height and width of this frame on which the user will draw. Then we will have shapes. Which type of shape it is, its X position, Y position, width, height, and these is some extra props for styling. Like if the user want it to be in gray color, in green, blue, whatever color he wishes. And let's just say, for example, for text, he might want sans serif font, New Times Roman, or a curvy style font. For that, we will use this style props. Okay. Similarly, we have this another text shape which will contain a text field which will store the text that the user want to enter, and similarly it has the style, font size, weight. So this is the idea behind how we are going to store the shapes in the database. Now we also had one option of adding an inspiration image so that the user can tell the AI what kind of layout he wants to generate. And for this, we have given the user an ability to upload the image. Now, here comes a question. How are we going to send this image to an AI? Are we directly going to send this image? Because when we upload an image, it is converted, or rather stored in a form of base64 data. So if we send this base64 data to the AI, it will be consuming a lot of tokens because if we see base 64 image data. So let's just upload a dummy image. Now, if you see, this is the base 64 data of the image, and if we send this to an AI, it will be consuming a lot of token to us. So what we will, instead of sending this image directly to the AI, what we will do is we will have a storage. For an example, I have taken here an S3 bucket. We will first upload this image to an S3 bucket, then we will receive the URL for that file, and we will send this URL to the AI. And currently the new models are capable of using the image URL to fetch that image directly and process on it. So the whole idea behind this is that we won't be sending the image to the AI directly. Instead, we will be using a storage like S3 bucket or Cloudinary to store that image on that storage and send the image URL to the AI instead of directly sending the image. So we have gotten this thing cleared. Now, before going to the part of generating the design, we also have this style guide data. It is optional for the user, but it helps the user to get a more accurate feel of the design that he wants. So similarly, as we discussed, when the user uploads the image, it will be stored in an S3 bucket or any image storage that we will be using. And after that, we will send that image to an AI with our custom prompt, which we will tell the AI to extract the font sizes and colors from it. So let's look at the example prompt that I had regarding the same. So you could pause the video and read it, but it's a very basic prompt. We would have to work on it a bit more to get more accurate results. So we will send the mood board images, the URLs, and an output syntax, like what kind of output we want. We will tell it to send us this color object and then typography object, in which it will extract the primary, secondary, background color, text color, fonts, line height, font family of the text, these kind of things. And then we would have a style guide for our project. So this object will be used to generate our final UI design. Now let's go back to the architecture. So we have talked about how we will be generate this data. So yeah, we have generated this data. Okay, we have both color and typography, which will we can display this to the user and give him the ability if we want to modify any color or font style, these kind of things. Okay, so our style guide is generated. We have already stored the URL for the inspiration image. Now it's come for generating the design. Now when the user press on the generate design, we have three things. First one is the inspiration image URL. Then we have the style guide object and the sketch. Now we have discussed how we are going to send this inspiration image. We have also discuss how we will generate this style guide object, and we could just send it directly to the AI. Now come the main point. This sketch, how we are going to send this sketch data to the user, the design that is generated right here. Okay, now we have few ways to do this. Let me just move it here. Yeah, we have few ways. One way is that we can one way is that when the user click on the generate design, we can convert this canvas or frame into an image, right? And we could do the same thing that we did with inspiration image. We will upload it to a storage and send that URL to the AI. But we have to understand one thing regarding the AI, that AIs are not very good at understanding the image. Its accuracy is pretty low as compared to text. We could make it work with the inspiration because it's not an actual design. It's just an inspiration that the user have added so the AI can get an idea about the design. It's not the actual design. This is why sending an image for the actual design that we want to generate is not a good idea. So if we can't send the image directly, what can we do? Another approach is that we will convert this frame into an HTML code, and then we can send this HTML code to the AI, right? This sketch will go in the form of HTML code, and the AI will be easily able to understand the HTML code. But we are not going to do that either. Now you might be wondering why. This is because, as the last time we talked about, how sending an image is gonna cost us lots of tokens. The same is true if we send this data as an HTML. So let me give you an example. Okay, I will just open the inspect here, and let's just say I selected this. You see, this is the kind of canvas that we would be having. And if we send this HTML code directly to the AI, it's gonna cost us tokens, like a lot of tokens. See, it is because we have so many unnecessary class IDs in the HTML tag, even the HTML tag itself, and it is not accurately sending the intent behind the design. So we somehow have to figure out a way to send only the intent of the design, not an actual code. And you might have already guessed, it's pretty simple. We will just send the frame data, this data. The AI will be able to easily understand our intent of the design using this JSON object. AI is very good at understanding JSON. So this is a generate design prompt that we would be sending to an AI. A system prompt, a user prompt, and similar to the style guide prompt, we would further need to improve it, add some restrictions, so it doesn't generate bad code. Okay, so anyway, so we will have frame. Okay, we will send all the shapes, their positions, just like how we stored it in the database, along with the style guide and an inspiration image URL. So what did we send? We sent the inspiration image URL, style guide object, and the sketch in the form of frame object. Now, using this, our AI will generate us an HTML code, which we will store and send back to the user to be rendered right here. And this user similarly can click on this code button and view the actual code. Now, we have one more feature here. If you notice, we also have a chat option right here. So let's suppose the user although liked the design, but there are few changes that he would like to do on the design. He is not gonna generate the design again because he will lose the current design, and he quite liked the design, but there are some small changes that he wants. For that, we have provided a chat option here. When the user clicks on the chat, he can describe like change the font, change the font to cursive. So how are we going to make this small change that the user wanted? This is the change that the user wanted. Currently, we have the HTML code and the intent of the change that the user wants. We will send this HTML code and the change that the user have mentioned along with the style guide so that the AI still maintains our style preset. So this is the example of what we are going to send to an AI when the user want to make some modifications. We will send the generated HTML code that was generated, the style guide, and a user prompt like add a sidebar and make it modern, and along with the some rules so that the AI doesn't send unnecessary data to us. And then we will receive a new code which we will again send to the user and show it on his screen. And this is how our complete architecture will work along with the data pipelines. Now, there are some advanced features that we can add to this application. One of them is autosave. Whenever the user makes any change to the UI, it should be autosave so that if the user accidentally refreshed or the connection get lost, the user doesn't lose his work. Another thing that we can add is streaming output. So when the user click on this generate button, there are a lot of things happening behind the scenes. We are sending this prompt to the AI and it will take some time to generate that HTML code, right? So instead of making the user wait, we will stream this HTML code directly to the user. So as the code is being generated by the AI, the designs slowly keep appearing on the user screen. Instead of him making wait for let's say 5 or 6 seconds, he could see that in the first second the nav bar is generated, in the second another section is generated, then another. This will also give a very premium feel to the website. Okay, what else we can add? We can add versioning so that now versioning where in the chat, let's say the user made this update, change the font to cursive, but he didn't like the result. He should be able to revert back to its previous changes. For that, we would have to store the history of the code generated. It's pretty simple, but it could get more complicated as we scale. Now, another thing that we could add is multi framework sub. So currently our AI is only generating the code in HTML. right, in HTML and let's say CSS. But in our modern softwares, we never use this raw HTML CSS. We always use libraries like Tailwind or even component libraries, right? So the user can set whether he needs a React Plus में Tailwind code or he might need an Angular code, right? Because this is not just a design application. We are also providing the code to the user. So the user should be able to get the code according to its requirement. And another a very cool feature that we could add, I would add stars here because this could just level up our application. We can use component libraries like ShadCN because if you have worked with ShadCN, you knew that we could pretty much make any kind of UI using ShadCN and it looks so awesome, like modern styles. If we go in ShadCN, so instead of AI generating a raw HTML code for all of this, we could just use an ShadCN components to generate the design and send it to the user. I mean, this feature is something that could get a bit complicated, but it is a kind of best selling feature for this application that we could build. And I will also be sharing this example with you. I have this rough document which has these steps that we just discussed. So I will just improve its structure using the AI and I will link this Notion doc in the description for you to take the reference and understand it better. I think this will be all for this video. I have explained you the architecture, the data flow from end to end when the user draw the sketch and how the UI is generated using the design. I have also added some advanced feature that we could add to our application. Now, in the next video, we would be probably talking about the database schema for this application. How are all these going to connect? Because if you can see this frame, we are not going to store this whole data as a single record. We need to separate these shapes. We need to add this frame inside a project. We could have multiple frames. So we would need to design an database schema for that. So we will design that database schema in the next video.